Coming to you from the TheEoNProject Studios, perched high atop the banks of the majestic Blackstone River. Greetings from the jewel of the Blackstone Valley. You're listening to Experts of Nothing with Mike and Jay. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Coming to you live.
Yeah, live? Well, not really live.
Well, we're not live. Well, we're live. We're live.
We're here in person.
We're living, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, so last week was our first episode.
It was.
And I think it went well for a new endeavor.
It went well. We haven't had any feedback yet.
Well, no, because it hasn't been published yet.
That's true.
So once it goes out into the world.
It's in the works, so
Yeah.
to speak.
So, yeah. So we had an interesting week this week. Things happening.
You know, I have to make one quick correction from something I said last week.
Okay.
I accidentally stated that, what was his name, Martin Mull?
Martin Mull.
I stated that he was in WKRP in Cincinnati.
Right.
That wasn't true. He wasn't in that.
You know what? No, he wasn't.
No.
But you know what that is an example of? It's something that my daughter actually told me about. Something called the Mandela effect. Have you ever heard of this?
Referring to Nelson Mandela?
Yes. Have you heard of it? It's a phenomenon.
I haven't, no.
Okay, so the Mandela effect, in essence, is basically it's the theory that people remember things wrong, and that wrong memory makes its way into the national consciousness. And the reason it's named that is because many people actually remember that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, which, of course, is not true.
Right.
He got out of prison and later became the president of South Africa. However, many people think they remember hearing that he was dead. Just like there's a few very well-known examples. One of them is the Luke, I am your father from Star Wars. That's actually not said.
Correct.
Right. That's not what he says.
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't like Star Trek.
Right. In any case, so that would be one. And then there was another one. Remember when we were kids, the Bernstein Bears?
The Berenstein Bears. Yeah.
Berenstein Bears.
Yeah.
It's actually spelled Berenstain Bears, Stain.
It is. Yeah.
But most people remember it being the Bernstein Bears, Sten.
Well, they were. I thought they were a family of Jewish bears.
I don't know that bears can have religious affiliation.
They didn't. There was one book they celebrated Chanukah, I believe.
Shaka Khan.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you know what today is?
Today is April
August
30th, right?
April 30th. You know what April 30th is?
No.
Walpurgis Night.
What does that mean?
You don't know it? You know what Walpurgis Night is?
It's another Jewish festive holiday?
Nope. It's actually today is the exact day opposite in the calendar of Halloween. Did you know that?
Ah, so it's equidistant.
Yes, equidistant is the word.
Okay.
So Walpurgis Night is actually celebrated in Germanic areas. It's also known as a witches' night. And basically, it's believed to be the night that witches met on the Brocken, the highest peak in the Harz Mountains. And what they were doing was they were coming up with schemes to confuse humanity, because this is their last opportunity to do so, because spring actually starts now.
I see.
And spring, everything is new.
Yep.
So this is the witches' last night to cause mischief.
So they're trying to keep spring from blooming.
Yes.
If you will.
Yes.
And yeah, okay.
So what we should start doing is
this
start
was an
driving.
evil endeavor by the witches.
Yes, we should start driving to Germany right now.
Yep.
So that by the time we get there, we'll be there for Walpurgis Night and at the peak of Mount Brocken.
You know, my son asked me the other day why we can't drive to Europe.
That would be hard.
Now, he thought we could make a bridge. I think maybe someday they could make a bridge.
Or a tunnel. How'd you like to be in that tunnel?
That'd be a deep tunnel.
It would be deep, and then what if there's an accident in that tunnel?
I wouldn't want to respond to such an accident.
No.
I wouldn't want to be in that tunnel.
No.
What if there was a catastrophic tunnel failure?
Yeah,
I don't
you'd be
like
in a lot of
tunnels.
troubles.
I was in New York one time. You ever been through the Holland Tunnel?
I have.
That's a sketchy tunnel. It's deep. It's long. It's dark. It's dank.
Somebody got killed in Boston in a tunnel, right?
Yeah, a piece of concrete just
Right.
randomly fell from the roof and landed on the poor lady's head, killed her in her car.
Well, if there's a way to go, I mean, a 3-ton piece of concrete
That was the
hit you in
Ted
the
Williams
head.
tunnel.
Was it the Ted Williams tunnel?
Yeah, scored a hit on that one.
The splendid splinter, Ted Williams.
Yeah. All right. So what are we doing this week?
Well, before we get into the topic,
Yeah.
Actually, what we're going to talk about, we got a couple of different topics. You have a topic. You're going to be talking about past lives.
That's right. I am, and it's something that I find quite interesting, and I feel like I've experienced some past lives now and then in my past. That's why it's called past lives.
And then once that's done, once we get through that nonsense, I'm going to be discussing a lot of weird circumstances behind some of the most famous, or infamous rather, serial killers and mass murders in American history. What if there was a shadowy satanic cult behind some or all of them that was actually pulling the strings all the way from the 1960s to today?
You mean influencing serial killers?
Influencing, controlling, using these groups to further their agenda.
Like
We're gonna talk
mind
about all
control and things like that?
things of that sort. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting to talk about that.
Interesting.
But before we do that, I wanted to discuss something that happened to me.
Okay.
Just this yesterday. So, I was going to have a campfire last night with my lovely family.
It was a good night to have a campfire.
Yeah, it was a beautiful night. It was a little windy. You don't want the embers to go off into the ether, causing fires. However, we were going to have a campfire, so I was out in the store buying the accoutrement to have a campfire, which you need marshmallows, and chocolate.
Yep. To make the
some
s'mores.
graham crackers.
Of course.
You need those three things, right?
Yep.
So in the area of the grocery mart, is it mart or market? Why do some of them are marts?
Well, it depends on which store you were at.
Oh, well, it was like a grocery store, so that'd be a market,
So
right?
it's a market. Sure.
Anyway, so I was in that section, and I actually saw on display near those items sticks for marshmallows.
Ah, I've seen the sticks.
Can I ask you a question? Why do we need to buy sticks at a grocery store?
Well, that's for the it's for the convenience factor, obviously, and for the lazy person that doesn't want to rummage around in the
well, let me ask
in
you
the
something.
foliage finding sticks.
If you're gonna have a campfire, right? Ostensibly, you'll be outside, right?
Yep.
Where do sticks live?
You could get a
Outside.
stick easily. They're
Sticks are
free.
everywhere. Millions
They're
of sticks.
abundant. You can grab any kind of stick you want. You can grab big
can-
stick, little stick.
Custom sticks.
See, that's why I like the idea of getting your own stick because you
Yeah.
can forage around. You can find the type of wood that you like. You can find the thickness, the length, so to speak.
I'm just wondering who's gonna buy the
You
sticks.
could debark it if you wish, and
the
then use
little
the bark for other things.
What would you use the bark for?
You could make bark crafts.
Barca loungers.
But I've seen that, and you know what's funny? If you look at the stick, it says "Made in China."
So they had this.
So-
they ship sticks all the way
Exactly.
from China.
So it's
where-
not even cost effective to make a stick in China from Chinese wood,
Yep.
package it,
Yep.
ship it here, and then sell it.
When we live in a country that's full of sticks,
Doesn't make sense.
everywhere
to
you
me.
go, there's sticks. You can find sticks anywhere you go.
Bad.
Anyway, well, I just thought that was odd that people would
It
buy
is
sticks
odd,
at the grocery
but I've seen that, and actually, I've partaken in it. And I'm not proud of it, but I have.
You've bought the sticks?
My wife bought the sticks.
Oh.
I cursed her out, but I used it anyway.
All right. Well, then that being said,
Yeah.
why don't we move on to the first topic of the week?
All right. Do you want me to go, or do you?
Yeah.
want
Why
to
don't you go first?
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about past lives, or otherwise known as reincarnation. And I think we've all heard of that idea before, and we're going to delve into it a little bit. And like we said, we're obviously experts of nothing here, but we like to spur
discussion
and debate and conversation about different various topics.
Right.
And for some reason, I like to think of myself as a skeptical believer. In other words, I believe in certain things that a lot of mainstream folks might not, but yet I'm very skeptical about some of the things that we see out there. So I always look at things with a wandering imagination and a wandering thought process,
and a wandering eye,
and my eye wanders quite frequently amongst things. But anyway, so reincarnation is one of these things that I, for some reason, and I don't know where it came from or why it is. Well, actually, I do know, and I'll touch on that here in a bit. But I find quite interesting, and I find it to be somewhat plausible for some reason, and I don't know why, but I do. I've always felt that way. So reincarnation, actually the word reincarnation is Latin in origin.
as many things are.
And it means entering the flesh again,
Ooh.
which I like the sound of that. It sounds interesting.
I don't like the word flesh.
You don't like flesh?
No. It's one of those
There's certain words that I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't mind flesh.
Yeah.
I don't like toe.
You don't like that word?
I don't like to say toe.
You know what word I like to say?
What?
Pavilion.
Pavilion? Do you have to say it like that?
Pavilion. Yes.
It rolls off the tongue well.
Let's meet at the pavilion.
That could mean a lot of things.
Yep.
Anyway, so reincarnation, entering the flesh again. So basically, just to break it down for the layman out there, it's when as I live currently, or you or anybody else that's living currently that's listening to this program,
Hopefully they're all living.
when their physical body dies, a lot of people think, depending on your belief process or beliefs, you think that the human body dies, and if you're a religious person, you think that if you've been led a decent life, then you'll go to heaven. Your spirit will rise from the body and go on and go to heaven and live happily ever after. Mm-hmm. But there are also other people that believe in reincarnation, where the body dies, and yet your soul that makes up the person that you are internally, mentally, will actually continue on in a different flesh, in a different host, a different body, if you will.
Oh, it's like a virus.
Yeah, so your spirit really never dies. It just changes forms over the course of time. Why I find this interesting and fascinating, I don't know. It could harken back to in our youth, in our childhood, and as Mike and I spoke about last week. Mike and I have been friends for a long time, and as youths do, we experimented with some things.
Oh, this is a family show.
No chemicals.
Oh.
Nothing sexual or anything like
good.
that.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, we were playing around with a Ouija board. We've all heard of the Ouija board.
Ooh.
We've all seen the Ouija board, and supposedly it can channel spirits,
the spirit board,
and things of that sort. And so Mike and I were partaking in the Ouija board one evening. I don't know how old we were, maybe teenagers of some kind.
Like 13, 14, something like that.
And we started delving into the idea of past lives for some reason. And we're making a Ouija board move all around, and it was moving itself, and we're asking all kinds of questions.
Like James Brown.
And come to find out, I had a past life. I had a few past lives. A couple of remarkable ones that come to the top of my head were I was an early American that fought in the French and Indian War. I was actually at the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga in New York.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because there's actually been several battles at Fort Ticonderoga over the years.
Yep.
So
I was at one of them.
You're at one of them.
I don't know which. I can't dig that deep into my subconscious.
So this is from the Ouija board.
The Ouija board is telling me this.
Right.
So
you fought in the
get your tinfoil hats out.
You fought as a American. Well, at that time you would have been a British subject.
Correct.
Fighting in America for the British crown.
Against the French and Indians.
Against the French and Indians.
That's
why they call it the French and Indian War.
Yeah, the French didn't fight the Indians. No, they teamed up.
No, and in Europe it's actually known as the 7 Years' War, which is a little bit more accurate. And you know why they call it the 7 Years' War?
It lasted for 7 years?
Yep. Did you study?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All right. I passed that. But it goes back to... So anyway, that was one of my past lives. And another one that never confirmed to me was never...
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that one for just a minute?
Yeah.
So you fought at the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga.
Yeah.
Is that where you met your end?
No.
Oh.
I actually survived the battle.
Okay.
I died years later
of
a venereal disease.
Well, that makes sense.
Syphilis, actually.
Yeah.
And that's not a joke.
That's
what I was told.
That's about right.
So why that was, I don't know. But did they have syphilis back then? They must have.
Of course. Well, the Europeans got around a lot.
Did I catch it from a native woman, you think? I wonder.
No, because I would think that disease wasn't prevalent in Native American tribes at the time.
Oh, all right. Just smallpox that we gave them. Anyway. So that was one of my past lives, and another that like I said, I never had confirmed, but it's deep in my psyche, in my subconscious. I really like pirates.
Yeah.
I like pirates. I like reading about pirates. I like pirate life,
you
pirate
wish you were
lore.
a pirate?
I do wish I was a pirate, but
you could drink rum all day.
In that vein, the pirate theme, I get very nervous around bodies of water, deep bodies of water, like when I cross bridges and I go I don't like going in the ocean. So I feel like I was a pirate in a past life, and I died a horrific death upon the seas.
Something to do with the water was your
the seas were my undoing apparently at some point.
Did you ask the Ouija board about this?
I didn't ask about the pirate thing, but I should look into that.
That you were a pirate.
And they actually have these past life regression therapists, basically.
Yep.
And if you believe in hypnotism, they're people that can put you in a very relaxed trance, and they can bring these past lives to the fore and try to find reasons why you're messed up in your current life, why you have issues in your current life.
There must be reasons why.
So I think that's one of my issues, why I don't like the ocean. I don't like going in the ocean past my toes. Toes again.
You just said it again.
I did. So I feel like I'm going to be eaten by a sea creature. But anyway.
So I wonder if that's what happened to you. And so basically your hypothesis, without doing any type of research whatsoever, is that if something bad happened to you in a past life, it affects the way that you live your life now.
That's correct.
So, like, if you had died in a desert, let's say, of thirst, you would avoid deserts. Or you would carry around water with you everywhere.
You'd have water. You'd wear a camelback everywhere you went. It'd be filled with liquid. You'd be afraid to die of thirst.
Wow. So, what do you think about all this? What do you think the reasoning behind all this is?
Well, the origins are basically, obviously it's a central tenet of most major Indian religions, i.e. Buddhism, Hinduism.
India, from the country of India, not India of Indian here.
Not American Indians, no. From the country of India.
Not how. Got it.
Yeah, lots of people there in India. But basically, that's where the origins of this idea came from. Was those ancient religions of India, and it's spread throughout the years. Excuse me, to to modern times as well. So the actual origins of it are kind of obscure, but as I said, the Indian religions it's very prevalent in that.
Eastern, that would be part of the Eastern religions, right? Like
Correct.
Eastern mysticism.
There's even some evidence that it goes back as far as the Druids. The Druid people talked a little bit about that.
The Druids built Stonehenge, did they not?
They did. Speaking of Druids, wasn't that the planet? Wasn't it Druidia that Princess Vespa was from?
In Spaceballs, the movie.
Yeah.
Yes, she was a Druish princess.
I never understood why they called it Druidia. Like,
because they were, you know why they did that actually? Because Mel Brooks is he's a Jewish man.
Sure.
And he uses a lot of Jewish jokes in his movies. And in that movie specifically, they use Druid like Jewish.
Oh, I see.
So he's cloaking making fun of his own religion.
Right.
By that, because there's one famous scene where Barf, the half man, half dog.
Yeah, played by John Candy.
That's right. A great actor. He says, "That's funny. She doesn't look Jewish." So
that's true.
Right.
Yeah. May the Schwartz be with you.
Schwartz, yes.
But yeah, so there's some evidence that the Druids actually even had a rudimentary understanding or belief of reincarnation. So, and when we look at scientifically, it kind of makes sense too. We all know the law that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. That it just basically it just changes forms from one to another. That goes back to the conservation of energy, which basically says that the total energy of any isolated system remains constant.
Okay.
So in other words, you say we're talking about campfires again. You have a piece of wood.
Yes.
So you have a piece of wood, and there's actually energy contained within that wood. You light the wood on fire, the energy is released as such.
It becomes a different form.
It does. It chemically changes to something else.
So everything that's on the earth right now comes from something else.
That's correct.
It's never been created or destroyed.
That's correct.
So how did it get here in the first place?
That is something that we still cannot understand.
That's another
prove,
show for
right?
for smarter people
they
than
talk
you and
about
I.
the Big Bang Theory, but
I don't like that show.
I don't get into it. I don't like any network programming, to be honest.
Oh, you're a snob.
Call me an entertainment snob.
Yeah, there's really nothing good on network television. We don't really watch. We the wife and I we have this pattern. We'll get into a show.
Yep.
For a couple of weeks, and we go, "Oh, this is really good," and then we just never get into it, never watch it again. But that's why I think Netflix is great, because you can watch. You don't have to remember to tape it. Network TV, a lot of times, when a show it's not available for on demand right away, you have to wait like a week. It's a bunch of junk.
Yeah. Anyway,
what
moving forward,
about?
Reincarnation. There was actually a psychiatrist by the name of Ian Stevenson, and I find cases of supposed reincarnation quite interesting. So Mr. Stevenson, he was from the University of Virginia. He conducted several years of research, 40 years.
That's a lot of time.
Over 40 years of research into past lives. He wrote several books about the subject, citing various examples and cases. And one that was interesting was the James Leninger case. He was a 4-year-old boy who believed that he was once a World War II fighter pilot who was shot down over Iwo Jima.
That's a lot of information for a 4-year-old.
At 4 years old. That's why it was interesting, because he said a lot of things that were very specific to that time period. He knew a lot of things about the aircraft itself, about battle, the battle that he was in, things of that sort.
Wow.
He used to have nightmares that his airplane was crashing, that his plane was on fire, things about that. And there's a lot of cases like that, actually, believe it or not. And some people say, well, it's just, it's the child picking up on things in his environment.
Yeah, but that's stuff that a 4-year-old wouldn't be exposed to generally.
Right, and I mean, even if they were, like, how many kids can, even if you watch a television program, a documentary on World War II or something, will get that into it. They'll have nightmares about it, and they can be very specific about certain things that they've experienced. So there's a lot of different cases like that over the years where people are basically know things that they shouldn't probably know. They know languages that they shouldn't probably know. Things of that sort.
Right. I was going to say, so sometimes you hear about stories like that where somebody will be in a different area of the country or of the world, I should say, and they suddenly know the language, or they know customs that they probably shouldn't know, or feel a sense of familiarity with an area that they've never been. Stuff like that.
Yes.
Oh.
That's actually correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I know it's correct because I've heard about it before.
Well, and you said it.
and everything I say is correct.
You're right all the time.
All the time.
Most of the time. But yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people have a hard time. Excuse me for coughing
clearing
into the microphone. I got to turn my head.
We need a cough button, like the real shows have. A cough button. You ever been listening to radio and then there's just like a blank space for a couple of seconds?
Yes.
I think is that what it is? Is someone coughing?
Dead air?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Someone coughs or swears inappropriately.
You ever heard anybody get gassy on the radio?
I don't think I've ever heard that.
No, me either.
No, that's not something that a microphone would pick up. I don't think.
No, you know why? Because you're sitting most of the time.
Yep.
You're in like a cushioned chair.
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Yeah, I would.
So, I was at my job, and I had a new chair.
You were in a cubicle, right?
Yeah, it's like a cube. It's a little farm of cubes on this floor.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
There's a lot of people there.
It's a good sized cubicle though.
It's open to the world though.
It's open to the world. There's no physical wall past chest height. Well, I'm a tall dude, so a lot of people can't see over those things.
Sure.
In any case, so there were folks around. I had a new chair, and I experienced a bout of flatulism, where I had to expel some gas.
You were getting that stomach pain.
Yeah,
you couldn't hold it. You had to let it go.
I had to. Well, it's a long walk to the bathroom.
Yeah,
and I didn't want to just get up and go. So I figured I would just let it go at the cube and see what happens. Play the waters. Let it go.
So were you trying to slowly release to kind of muffle the sound?
Yeah, I didn't want to just rip it
right.
because then everyone would hear that.
Right.
So I thought if I just went low and slow.
You have to have some good control to be able to do that.
Low and slow.
Yep.
And you'll get through it, right? So I decided to do that. What I didn't realize at the bottom of my chair was made of a mesh material. And what happened was, as the flatulent gas went through the little mesh holes, it caused a whistling effect.
Oh.
And actually amplified the sound of the fart.
So it was you were forcing hot intestine air through the tiny holes of the mesh chair.
Yep.
And it caused a
whistle.
A whistle.
Yep.
A whistle.
So a fart whistle echoed through the cube area, and I just no one can tell where it came from. There's a lot of people there, so you if you don't acknowledge it, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
So I just I made a mental note not to do that again, and all was well. Like no one ever pinned it on me.
Did you see any? Were there any reactions? Or
I didn't want to stick my head up.
You didn't want to look. You just kept your head at your computer.
I didn't do the prairie dog and look around. No, I stayed low and made it through okay.
You probably should have blamed it on Bob from accounting. Stuck your head up.
Bob from accounting is a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
he's always causing troubles. Anyway, that was my mesh story.
It's good. It's lesson learned there.
Lesson learned.
If you have to release,
you should know what you're sitting on.
Know what you're sitting on.
Like for instance, when you're on a plane.
Yeah.
That's a dense. It's a life preserver for God's sake. So it's gonna catch whatever you drop into it.
Well, here's the thing. It'll catch the sound. It'll muffle the sound. But
when you're gonna stand up,
you're in a plane though. So what happens is the air gets recirculated.
Yeah, but whenever you stand up to go to the bathroom, it just everything is released.
It wafts. It wafts into the air, and it causes.
Planes are gross.
Causes mayhem for the people.
Planes are gross.
Ocular? No, not olfactory. Olfactory mayhem for the people around you. Yep. Yes.
So we're still on reincarnation?
So reincarnation, you judge it for what it is. I personally, for some reason, I subscribe to the idea. I like to think that when you die, that you continue on in a different form or one form or another.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been scientific evidence that when someone dies, they get lighter. Correct? Like something happens.
I've heard that
where they measured it. It's very very small, but there's a noticeable difference in weight when someone.
There's a release of something.
So what is that?
I don't know. It could be flatulence. Who knows?
Well, air doesn't weigh anything.
It could be post-mortem flatulence.
I don't think the methane gas that comes out of your butt weighs anything.
Of course it does. It has mass, doesn't it?
I don't know. Does it?
Sure.
I guess.
It has weight. It's weighty. So when you let it go, you feel light and free.
Nice. So are we done with the reincarnation?
Well, I'd just like to say that reincarnation is what it is, and you choose to believe it or not.
It is what it is.
The end.
The end.
We'll talk more about it later in a different setting.
Future episode.
Yeah, we'll delve more into it.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll actually bring a Ouija board here into the show.
I don't know if we're going to do that.
And we'll do a past life reading from the Ouija board here.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm actually affiliated through some people who know some people who are into the that whole area of magic crystals and past life regression and Reiki. Is it Reiki?
Reiki, something like that.
I don't know a whole lot about it,
Yeah.
but we could probably get a guest on a future show that knows a lot more than we do.
Reiki Lake.
Reiki Lake was a good show back in the.
I used to love that show. It was a good show. Mm-hmm. It was above ahead of its time. Now you see a lot of shows.
I don't think it's
like
on
that.
anymore. Is that on anymore?
I don't think so.
Daytime TV itself sucks.
It's awful.
I had occasion to be out of work for a short amount of time due to an injury fairly recently, and there's nothing to watch on television during the day.
No.
They don't even put good things on the History Channel. It's all infomercials. I guess they figure that people at home during the day don't want to learn because there's nothing educational. I watch a lot of educational programs in an effort to be more cultured, which leads us to this very next segment of the show. So here on the Experts of Nothing show with Mike and Jay, we try to bring a little bit of culture to everyday life. We try to bring a little bit of sophistication. You know, I think it's important to have that type of culture.
Which is why we talk about flatulence in the workplace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, what we decided to do was take everyday mundane subjects, tasks that you would normally accomplish on a daily basis, and convey instructions on how to complete those tasks with a Shakespearean flair. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to, as we speak, I'm handing Jason a paper who he has never seen before. And what he's going to do is he's going to read instructions on how to complete a task as it would have appeared in Shakespeare's day, perhaps at the Globe Theatre in London.
And many people don't know this, but Mike and I are classically trained Shakespearean voiceover actors.
Classically trained, yes.
And so we can turn it on like a switch at a moment's notice.
We can, and when we do it, any subject that we talk about brings sophistication.
Absolutely. So I'm going to read this in a classic Shakespearean voice.
Again, you have never seen this.
I've never seen this. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm about to read.
Nope, but it's going to be read Shakespearean, so automatic. You know, anything you read with a Shakespearean accent brings gravitas.
Okay, so here we go.
Without further ado.
I will start with the title. The title of this speech is Using a Suppository. Always wash your hands and use gloves. Lubricate the finger of the glove with KY jelly or a similar product. You must first remove stool for the suppository to work. Have a bowel movement or gently insert the finger and remove stool. Continue to do so until none comes out. Wait a few minutes and then try again to see if any more stool has moved down. Take the wrapper off the suppository and insert it as right in your return as you can.
In your return?
Something like that.
Rectum.
Oh, rectum. The print is messed up. Rectum. Rectum. Insert in your rectum as you can return it to its place, at the proper place in the buttocks.
Well, that was brilliant.
Yes.
And bravo.
Thank you.
What do you say to a Shakespeare actor when they do? Do you say bravo?
You could say bravo.
Would they throw roses or toilet paper at you?
In that case, toilet paper for sure.
Oh, so hopefully that brought a little bit of sophistication to your day.
Yeah, next week, I myself will research a topic, research a subject, and Mike will bring forth his Shakespearean twist and flair to it as well.
And we'll do funny segments like that on occasion on this program.
And we could, maybe someday we'll even do the whole show in that voice.
I don't think anyone will listen to that show. Because it gets grating after about 30,
after a while.
30 seconds maybe.
Yeah, maybe a minute.
This is the shelf life for that. So anyway, that out of the way, we're going to move on to the second topic of our program today. And it's what I talked about briefly earlier. What if there was a shadowy satanic cult behind some of the most infamous murder cases in American history? From the 1960s with Charles Manson and the family, to David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer in the 1970s, to Andre Rand, who was involved in a series of child murders on Staten Island in the 1980s, which actually gave birth to an urban legend which happened to be true, which a lot of people don't know that story, to the Smiley Face Killer Group. Are all of them being backed by a shadowy satanic cult that has its evil hands in lots of business?
So it's a group of people that are trying to influence others. So
Yes.
Are you saying that these people...
I'm not saying anything. I'm reporting
Okay.
what my research... The goal of this program is not to not to tell you the end-all, be-all of the subjects that we're discussing, but as Jay mentioned earlier, it is to spur discussion and hopefully lead our audience to conduct their own research offline while they're not listening to us.
I see.
Because you shouldn't listen to anything we say.
You should listen.
No, I'm sorry. You should listen, but you shouldn't take our word for it, I should say.
Right. You go out and do your own research.
Right. So while on this show, we're not going to concentrate on the individual murderers or murder groups because that would take way too long. So basically everything that I'm going to discuss today can have its own show, all of these things. But really what I want to do is just outline a little bit of what could be behind all of these famous murder cases. So that being said, we're going to go to the beginning of the story, which starts with all things evil in the 20th century with a man named Aleister Crowley, which before you start correcting me,
okay.
For years and years and years, I always said Aleister Crowley was his name.
Well, because of the Ozzy Osbourne song.
Correct.
That's how he says it.
Was it Black Sabbath or was it Ozzy Osbourne?
That was Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay. So Ozzy Osbourne says Mr. Crowley in the famous song. Correct. It's actually a very good song. It actually contains one of the most highly rated guitar solos of all time. That song, Mr. Randy Rhoads.
Randy Rhoads, who died long before he should have died. He was a musical genius.
How did he die?
A crash, either a plane or a helicopter crash.
It's amazing how often very talented music stars die.
It's too bad. He was only in his early 20s.
That's terrible.
You go back and look at some of the early footage, some of the rare footage of him playing guitar, and he was really a virtuoso.
Well, I heard a rumor that Mr. Randy Rhoads had an affair with Sharon Osbourne. Back when Sharon and Ozzy were first married, which I don't know if they've been married all that. I think they've been married for a very long time.
They have, yeah.
So anyway, we just digressed.
So you're saying Ozzy Osbourne sabotaged the aircraft that Randy Rhoads was in?
You never know. He's a devious
or he put
man.
a spell on it of some
The
kind.
Blizzard of Oz. You never know.
Well.
Anyway, the Mr. Crowley song, he calls it Mr. Crowley. Many people say was an homage to Aleister Crowley, but actually, if you listen to the words, it's actually against Aleister Crowley.
I see.
So listen to that song again.
Yeah, people. Ozzy wasn't satanic.
No.
Like many people may have thought over the years.
No, he was not.
Anyway,
so early 20th century, Aleister Crowley, which for those of you who don't know, was a magician. When I say magician, not like David Copperfield or.
He didn't pull a bunny out of a hat or
no,
anything
he wasn't
like
like a. What was that guy's name? Chris Angel.
Chris, yeah, he's pretty good. He just got hurt, I think, recently doing a trick.
He's a very good magician. But when I say magician, Aleister Crowley actually performed black magic ceremonies, rituals, and stuff. He was a Satanist. He called himself the Antichrist. His goal was to become the wickedest man in the world. So a lot of the early 1900s Satanism movement towards that started with Aleister Crowley. So while the discussion of Crowley himself could fill many, many shows, we're not going to focus on him today, except to say that he was an evil dude, right? He proclaimed himself the Antichrist, as I said, referred to himself as the Beast, performed weirdo sexual religious crap all over the place, and so on and so forth. He was also very influential, and we're going to learn about that in a moment. So Crowley was a Freemason, which we know what Freemasonry is.
Some may not.
Some may not.
That could be a show later on.
That's a show for another day. Well, Freemasonry is a Freemasons are a fraternal group, secretive, and we're not going to discuss all that today, but most people know what a Freemason is anyway. So Crowley was a Freemason, supposedly a 33rd degree Mason, which is reportedly as high as one may ascend in that group. So not good enough for Crowley. He didn't agree with everything that Freemasonry held, so he wanted to start his own group. But before he started his own group, he moved on to a group called the Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO. It's also known as the Order of the Temple of the East or the Order of Oriental Templars. So an offshoot of Freemasonry. And back in 1910, Aleister Crowley took over the group and altered some of their established rituals and beliefs to include his famous phrase, which you'll see in many things afterwards, is "Do what thou wilt will be the whole of the law." Have you ever heard of that term before?
No.
Okay, so meaning you can pretty much do whatever you want and not face any consequences. Do what thou wilt will be the whole of the law is the basis for all of the early Satanist movement stuff.
So as you live your life, you can
however you want to do it.
You can't be governed by any outside
That's
law or force.
That's right.
You just do whatever the heck you please.
Right. So Crowley takes over this group, the OTO. Fast forward to 1945. Okay, so the World War II is over, right? The OTO now has branches in the United States. And one in Pasadena, California.
Is he still alive at this point, or is he passed?
He is alive. He died in 1947.
Okay.
So Crowley's still alive. In 1945, in Pasadena, California, One of the OTO initiates in that group was, drumroll, L. Ron Hubbard,
Ah, of course.
the enigmatic founder of Scientology, right? So Hubbard was actually recorded in his lifetime saying that Crowley was a dear friend of his, which he would have had to act fast because Crowley died in 1947. This was 1945.
Yeah.
But supposedly L. Ron Hubbard and Aleister Crowley had some sort of relationship. L. Ron Hubbard didn't stay long with the OTO because he founded Scientology in 1953, just a few years later. So I ask you, here you have a self-avowed Satanist who starts a Satanist branch of Freemasonry and franchises it out to the world like a bunch of Burger Kings.
Yeah.
Okay? One of those members goes on to found a new religion a few years later. Would you think that was odd?
I would say it's a cult.
Right.
It's a cult.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to talk about Scientology in and of itself today, but that's a subject for another show. In any case, so L. Ron Hubbard's, and I'm sorry if I'm going, you have to kind of stay with me on
No, I'm
this
with
stuff,
you. I got you.
Because this is going to lead to something cool, I promise. So in any case, Hubbard started Scientology in the 1950s, and again, another story for another day. But what's interesting is that in 1965, about 10 years later, 65, 66, a splinter group shot off of Scientology, and it was called the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which is going to be very, very important to this discussion today. So it was a religious group that flourished in the 60s and 70s. It was actually founded by an English couple, Mary Ann and Robert de Grimston. They actually changed their names. De Grimston is a cool name.
I wouldn't trust anyone with that name, so it's probably a good idea that they changed their name.
No, that's what they changed it to.
They changed it to Shithouse?
They were originally Mary Ann McLean and Robert Moore.
Oh, they changed it to that.
They changed it to de Grimston because it sounds cooler.
It does.
Right? And actually, both of them met at a Scientology branch in London. They were instructors there. So they were not just members of the Scientology church, they were instructors of Scientology.
And they were living a life of scientific, or Scientological carnal knowledge
whatever
of
the
one
case
another.
may be, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't good enough for them. So they offshoot from Scientology, and they basically started this Process Church of the Final Judgment, which is a mix-up of a few different religions. And actually, their basis was they worship both Jesus Christ and Satan, with the theory that at the end times, Satan and God will make up and join forces to judge humanity. So they figured, let's get in now and worship both of them, so that when the end times come, we'll be on the good side.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Here's my. Let's go back and talk just quickly.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the God and Satan thing.
Sure.
You know, obviously, religious people, everybody knows about God and Satan and all that stuff, and there's always the idea that they are separate from one another. Right? That they exist outside of one another, but yet are in conflict. But I say this: if you're a believer in God, if you're a religious person, you believe in God, who created all things.
Yes.
Then you would know that
He created one. Right.
He created Satan or the devil or whatever you would call him.
Right.
So it doesn't live outside of that. It's part of the universe. It's part of the continuing dichotomy of good versus evil.
So everything is a product of God.
Correct.
Okay.
I just figured I'd throw that in.
No, thank you for that clarification. So, not necessarily a satanic church, but enough because they do worship Satan. They also worship Jesus.
Sure.
So it makes it both. So
that must make for an interesting Secret Santa
services
event during the holidays.
Yeah, I wonder what their Santa does. Oh, it brings you knives. So
could be.
So this group back in the 60s and 70s, they tried to start making inroads into the music industry, which a lot of groups did at the time.
What better way to influence young minds?
Exactly what I was just about to say. So they approached the Beatles and the Rolling Stones to try to forge relationships with them, because as you said, music is the gateway to the minds of young people, right? Everybody knows this. Mick Jagger's girlfriend, Marianne Faithfull, was actually affiliated with the Process Church, and Mick himself appeared on a cover of the church's magazine. Oh, which I'm not on their mailing list, but it's probably pretty cool. So here's where some weird stuff starts happening. So some observers have described the Process Church as I'm not going to call them the Process Church because it's simpler, as a society dedicated to the aiding and abetting the end of the world. Okay, now I want you, because you're a smart guy, I want you to listen to what I'm about to say and figure out what this sounds like to you. So they're trying to bring about the end of the world by stirring up murder, violence, and chaos. In the Process's end-time scenario, they would survive the wrath of the apocalypse as the chosen people, which is identical to what? What have you heard? What group have you heard kind of wanted to start trouble to bring about the end of the world, and then they would be the only ones that would survive?
Was it Westboro Baptist? Is that what you're talking about?
The Manson family.
Oh, yeah.
So that was their main...
I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Because when you said Mick Jagger and you started talking about music, it made me think about Charles Manson.
Right, and that's what we're going to get to
Tried
next.
to influence people through music
correct.
as well.
That's right. So when you start
yeah.
listening to the background of the Process Church of the Final Judgment, you start hearing Manson family because this is exactly what they're saying.
Right.
Right. So that's the Manson family worldview. They wanted to instigate what they called Helter Skelter, which was the end times, and where there would be a race war,
right.
and the Manson family would hide out in caves, and then when the destruction was over, they would come back and rule the world.
So Charles Manson actually wanted to be a musician.
Yes,
he wanted to be taken seriously as a musician, which obviously that didn't work out for him. But
well, didn't he write a song that ended up on a Beach Boys album?
That's correct. He actually befriended Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Yes,
and obviously, after the whole Manson crimes came to the forefront, obviously they tried to distance themselves from him. But sure enough, they recorded one of his songs, and more recently, the not the Rolling Stones, Guns N' Roses back in the '90s. I don't know if you remember their album, The Spaghetti Incident.
Yes.
They recorded it was a hidden track on that album. They recorded a Charles Manson song.
I did not know that.
And at the end, you hear Axl Rose saying, "Thanks, Chaz."
Oh,
when Chaz is his nickname.
That's interesting. I did
still
not
to
know
this
that.
day, he has some influence over people.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh. So we're going to talk about the Manson family connection to the Process Church now, because here's a weird instance, and you have to know a little bit about the Manson family history, which I'm not going to talk about the Manson family in detail today. But so here's a weird instance. 1968, 1969. Director Roman Polanski, right, was renting a house in Los Angeles with his wife, Sharon Tate, newly married. Okay. And they were also pet sitting for another actress at the time. I think it was Patty Duke. So they were renting this house and they were pet sitting. One night, the dog escaped from the compound, and Roman Polanski started chasing it and ran down a hill. This is in Hollywood, in Los Angeles. And he later told people he ran into a strange group of English people who were trying to bring about the end of the world, and he actually had an altercation with them. He ended up getting chased by a bunch of dogs that these English people had.
Were they English bulldogs?
No, it doesn't say what kind of dogs they were, but he got chased by a bunch of dogs and actually had to hide out in a garage.
Yeah.
And was trapped in there. He had to break out a window and escape. So what you have to learn from that is, weeks later, the Manson family entered that same rented house and killed Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Jay Sebring in the famous Manson family murders.
Right.
So is that a coincidence that Roman Polanski has an altercation with a group of English people who are trying to bring about the end of the world? They were casing the joint. Either that, or Roman Polanski pissed them off, and this is how they decided to get back at him. And obviously, Roman Polanski was not home when the Tate murders took place.
That's interesting in and of itself.
Right. So afterwards, Charles Manson actively spoke about many of the same issues of the Process Church. Actually, Charles Manson was a Scientologist. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Charles Manson supposedly studied Scientology in prison and actually arose to the level of clear, which in the Scientology church...
Frequency, clear.
In the Scientology church, that means that's like about as high as you can go is clear. So in actuality, when Manson was in jail for the Tate murders and the LaBianca murders afterwards, he was visited in jail by members of the Process Church. Actually, this is documented. They visited him in jail. After this visit, Manson never mentioned the group again, never mentioned any of the things that he discussed previously. So the theory is that they spoke to him and said, "You better stop talking about us because we'll do something really bad."
Now, what do you think? What do you think, Charles? So he's in prison. He's studying Scientology. Excuse me. What do you think he had to do in prison to be able to reach that high level of the clear level in Scientology?
From what I know about Scientology, and that's just from watching documentaries and doing some reading and whatnot. And actually, there's a very good documentary series, Leah Remini. Remini.
Yeah, from Kings of Queens.
King of Queens was a Scientologist for many years, and actually put out an expose about the group and some of the nefarious dealings that they.
Have you seen this show?
I did. I've seen the show.
Is it any good?
It's very good. It gets kind of old. Like the first few episodes are very good, and then it's just repetitive. And what she does is she finds people who used to be part of the church and kind of defected.
Isn't it difficult to escape the church once?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stories that these guys tell are armed guards chasing them down the road and trying to bring them back, and then trying to ruin your life if you're out of it and so on. So yeah, not a pleasant group to try to leave.
So you never answered my question. What is it? What does he just like? He reads books?
Yeah. Well, supposedly in the Scientology church, you have to take courses in order to
like online classes.
Well, yeah.
So it's like an online degree that you get, like University of Phoenix.
I would encourage you to watch the Leah Remini documentary because the way she describes it, you have to pay an enormous, exorbitant amount of money to take these courses.
Right.
Once you pay the money, you take the course. Then you move up a level. So it's like a marketing scheme.
Is there a test that you have to take?
Yes, and then they do lie detector sessions with you, and it's bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre.
Strange.
So
I guess it's people searching for something more in their lives, apparently, who feel like they need to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah,
that get hooked into this sort of thing.
So Charles Manson actually, after this, and I don't have the quote in front of me, I should have included it in the notes, but said something to the effect in a jailhouse interview after he was convicted of the murders of Sharon Tate and the rest of the group, that he's let loose scorpions all over the country to sting people. Meaning, I have followers. I have
not actual scorpions.
No. Like scorpions mean
that would be
kind
of creepy. You know, you get up in the morning, you put your shoes on. There's a scorpion in there,
and it's got the little face of Charles Manson on it.
And even if you lived in like a cold climate,
that'd be weird.
That'd be weird.
But no, so his followers are out there still causing mischief.
I believe it. There's people out there that still listen to him and follow his teachings and things of that sort.
So you have a clear connection between Charles Manson, Scientology, and the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Right there. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward, if you can.
Okay.
Make a fast forward noise. Okay. 1970s, right? A series of 6 murders in New York City. 1976 and 1977 plunged the city into panic and unleashed one of the largest manhunts in New York history. The victims were all shot with a .44 caliber handgun, which led to the name the .44 caliber killer. At one of the scenes, the killer left a note taunting police and signed the name Son of Sam, which no one knew what the hell that meant. But after one of the murders, a witness noticed that the killer had a parking ticket on his car as he left the scene, and based on that, a man named David Berkowitz, a postman from the area, was arrested and confessed to the crimes. He said his neighbor Sam Carr had a dog that spoke to him and told him to commit the murders.
Was David Berkowitz Jewish?
No. Oh. Actually, David Berkowitz was adopted into a Jewish family. I don't think he was a Jewish person by birth.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, he also said that Sam, his neighbor, was Satan, and the dog told him to kill the people, which that's why the name Son of Sam comes into play. So Berkowitz, although he was arrested, he's still in jail, I believe. He's still out there. He never stated that he committed the acts alone, although no one else was ever tried for the crimes. He also said that he was a member of a group of people which performed satanic rituals. They would meet in parks and do sort of weird rituals and stuff like that.
George Takei was part of that, I believe.
George Takei. So many believe that Berkowitz was a member of, quote-unquote, the Children, which is a subset of the Process Church of the Last Judgment. And Berkowitz himself stated that one of the Son of Sam murders was videotaped, actually, during the murder, and that the cameraman, a man named Ron Sisman, was subsequently murdered by cult members when they went to recover the snuff film. So they took the film back and they killed...
So nobody's ever seen the film.
That's correct. Well, somebody
that we know of, yeah.
Right. So some researchers say that Sisman was killed by a mysterious figure that was known as Manson II, which was later identified as a man named W. Menser, which was, by all accounts, an occult superstar and a hitman who moved through the same type of circles as Manson did in the 60s, which was drugs and music and all that stuff, and actually who had been intimate with Abigail Folger, who was one of the victims of the...
So it's going full circle here.
Yeah, so you have connections between all the things we discussed and now David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam. So was the Son of Sam killings another attempt by the Process Church to incite the coming of the end of the world? Who knows?
Who knows? But then again, I mean, and if you look at it, there's definitely no shortage of mentally disturbed individuals out there that are easily influenced by others. So if you wanted to, if you yourself didn't want to commit the acts but wanted to influence others around you to do that, I think that could be, that's a possibility as well.
Yeah.
Because there's some, there's some people out there that are they have that manipulative aspect about them, and they're very good at mind control, essentially, is what that is.
So you bring up a good point. So as we all know, Charles Manson had some sort of weird control over his group of people.
Right.
And by all accounts, everyone thinks that Charles Manson is a nut bar. Well, he may have been a nut bar, or he may be a nut bar, but he definitely has the ability to influence others and have them do what he wanted. Because in actuality, he never killed anybody. Correct? That was proven.
Correct.
He just told people to do it. So we have those two things, and now just one last one: the 1980s. Okay, so we're in each. Now we've moved forward again. Staten Island, New York. You know where Staten Island is?
Staten Island.
A little island.
Yeah, it's the northern part of New York.
Southern.
I mean, like north of Manhattan.
No, it's south.
South of Manhattan.
It's like down off of New Jersey.
Oh, I'm usually good at geography.
Yeah, you've probably never been to Staten Island.
No.
It was actually used as a dumping ground for many, many years. Nothing was there. And actually, they built a tuberculosis hospital there.
Oh.
And so they used to dump people on Staten Island. But now it's a borough of New York City.
Is that anywhere near Plum Island? You know, Plum Island, isn't that like where they did like weird experiments? Experiments on things, like governmental experiments.
Yeah, there was some kind of a base there.
And there's like
that.
strange creatures that walk around there.
Hey, that's another show for another day.
Oh, all right.
Anyway, so Staten Island in the 1980s was still somewhat sparsely populated, but there was a fair amount of people that lived there. Several children started to go missing in the area of the abandoned Willowbrook Mental Hospital. It was actually known as the Willowbrook State School, which was also it was a series of hospitals and schools and whatnot for mentally challenged people and tuberculosis patients and basically anybody that they didn't want to have around anyone else. So several children go missing in the area. And actually, this is funny. Doing research for this program today, I ran across a documentary where in the 1970s, a young, dashing reporter did an expose on the Willowbrook State Hospital, and he had a flowing mustache. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Geraldo Rivera?
Geraldo Rivera.
Oh, I love Geraldo.
A young reporter did actually a very, very powerful expose on the Willowbrook School and exposed a lot of disgusting things that were going on there. And as a result of that report, several years later, the Willowbrook School closed. So
he gets into some interesting cases.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was the Al Capone
yes.
mystery vault.
In the 80s, right?
In the 80s, where he was digging through Al Capone's vault trying to find treasure.
Right.
And I spent all night. My parents let me stay up late watching this program. I should have been in bed. And I was hoping, because I liked Al Capone, I did some research paper on him. I thought he was
maybe you were a gangster in a previous life.
Could be. And then I was sadly disappointed when they broke through the vault.
Didn't they find some bottles?
They found some old bottles, and that was about it. And a note from Al saying,
"That's when you get
gotcha."
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Willowbrook School closed down in the late 1970s. So in the 1980s, kids started going missing in the area. So an urban legend grew of a man named Cropsey. I don't know where they get the name Cropsey from. But
that's just his whole name, like Madonna.
Yeah,
it's just Cropsey.
Cropsey was a boogeyman type figure who lived in the tunnels underneath the insane asylum and emerged at night to kidnap and kill kids. But guess what? It was true.
Oh.
There was a guy that was arrested by the name of Andre Rand, who was a one-time employee of the asylum, and they actually found was living in makeshift homes in the woods and underneath the Willowbrook School. And he was convicted of kidnapping and killing a 7-year-old disabled girl in the 1980s.
So, it sounds just like that most recent M. Night Shyamalan movie. I
didn't see it.
I forget the name of it. I did catch some of it. Split, yes.
Yeah. Don't give away the ending. I hear it's a good one.
I won't give it away.
Okay. You were about to.
No.
Yeah, I know you. So, anyway, Andre Rand was convicted and of that one crime, but they weren't able to pin any of the other crimes on him, even though they were reasonably sure that he had killed several more people. The bodies were never recovered. Many people believe that the reason the bodies were never recovered was because Rand was a member of a satanic cult and the kids were being used as sacrifices. Because area residents reported seeing cloaked figures in the woods surrounding the hospital around the time of the murders. So, New York is supposedly a center for the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Is it hard to believe that they would have a hand in these killings as well? Many people think that this Andre Rand was a group leader of satanic cult worshippers in that area.
I know you said that their goal is to bring about chaos and bring about the end of the world and all this stuff.
Yes.
It's not working. I mean...
Nope, the world's still here.
People get killed and people move on. It's tragic, and here we are.
But I mean, if you think about it logically, let's say that there's any truth to this to this conspiracy that we've outlined today. Let's say that this group, this Process Church, is directing these killings and these ongoing acts of violence. What do you think the end goal would be? Like you said, people die all the time.
Right.
There's murderers arrested. There's whatever horrific things happen on a daily basis around the world. Is it working?
No, I think maybe it's possibly just this is the life they choose to live. I guess everybody has their own niche, so to speak, and for these people, it's bringing chaos and death and destruction upon others.
Well, I mean, and besides the Process Church, there's other cults around that are supposedly directing murderers. Henry Lee Lucas, one of the most prolific serial killers that no one's ever heard of, a lot of people have never heard of, actually admitted upwards of 600 murders back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he admitted, supposedly, that there was a group called the Hand of Death, and it was a cult that directed his activities and told him, go out there and kill all these people. It's going to help us, whether it's to incite the end of the world or serve as sacrifices during their rituals, or who knows what they're doing. So we've only scratched the surface of what this could be, if it's anything.
You know who I think is the probably one of the scariest cult leaders, modern cult leaders that we have today?
Who's that?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins is scary.
The guy's scary. He
He's
reminds
large.
me of the bad guy in the Cobra movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
He reminds me. He talks like
looks
that.
very
He
much
kind of looks like that.
Yes.
And
That movie was great. That was one of the first movies where I heard the F word.
Heard the F word?
As a young
that was
man.
a violent film for
violent.
a youth.
Violent. Yes.
And he had an MP5 with a laser sight on it. I
did.
thought that was cool.
The movie poster was super cool. And he had a match in his mouth.
He always carried a match in his mouth. He drove that 58 Mercury. That was a nice car.
I wonder if I walked around with a match in my mouth today, if that would make me cooler than
That
I
was
am.
a cult. In that movie, they used to clang
That's
the
right.
axes together.
That's correct. That was
going
a
around
killer,
killing people.
killer cult. Good segue into the...
Crazy. But anyway, Tony Robbins. Oh, my God. Speaking of people that have influence over others, and people pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to listen to this guy just rant on about nonsense.
Well, isn't it true that that Tom Brady actually is appearing
Yes.
at a inspirational event?
It's true. Tom Brady has jumped the shark. He's losing his mind.
You know, I have a lot of
officially.
respect for Tom Brady as a football player,
As an
and
athlete,
as for the many tremendous acts of athletic greatness
and
over the
and
years,
goodwill towards many.
and he just seems like a good guy, you know.
But here's the problem with him, and I don't, and like I said, obviously I'm a fan of the team and all this stuff. I don't like it when people try to preach to me about how you. I mean, he's not overly.
But does he do that, or does he just say what he does?
Well, but he tries to influence others.
Well, is that true? Because people ask him. Like, for instance, if no one ever asked him about his training regimen or his diet, which is completely weirdo.
No, but he's out there. He's opening up all these little clinics and these different. He's got this online food service now and all this other stuff.
Okay, well,
whatever.
I don't know that he's actively pushing it on people.
I think he's involved. He's involved in the cult. He's involved in the evil
with Peyton Manning
end times cult that you were talking about.
It could be.
And all the quarterbacks are in the NFL. They're all part of this.
Even Geno Smith.
They come off as caring about the community and playing football, but really they have evil intentions.
Well, I have a lot of problems with athlete hero worship myself, but that's something for another day. But anyway, so we talked about some stuff today, a couple of things that maybe people might want to follow up on, right? And I don't know. What do you think about all this?
Here's what I think. I think we should delve a little more into past lives on another show, like I said before. And we could break down some of these specific cases that you just mentioned a little bit more in depth. Like the Zodiac Killer. I know you didn't mention
that. And I didn't mention the Zodiac Killer, but that is another...
That's another fascinating case.
Fascinating
Actually, there was a
case.
movie that came out a few years back that was pretty decent.
What I think is interesting, and this is a show in and of itself, would be, what is this with serial killers that feel the need to send... taunting letters to the police? It doesn't happen just once. It happens all the time.
No, and that's kind of that thing. It's kind of like the arsonist that burns a building down and then stands by and watches it burn.
Right.
You know.
I mean, the Zodiac Killer sent notes.
Taunting.
Jack the Ripper, BTK Killer. The Son of Sam. They send letters, and that leads ultimately to their capture.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right. And if you look at the killers that have gone longer and killed more people, usually the ones that kind of try to live more of a secret life. You know.
Right. You're just not a good killer. You send notes.
Yeah.
Don't send notes.
Yeah, it kind of gets them off.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh.
What did you think of that?
Of what?
Of the whole show here today.
I think we've covered some good stuff.
Yeah.
I think that I mean, we're sparking discussion. And what I hope people will do is after they listen to this program or while they're listening to this program, if something pops into your head and you want to send us a note about what we're talking about or what we want to do in the future, send an email to...
That's exactly right. So it's TheEoNProject at yahoo.com.
TheEoNProject.
TheEon, TheEon project.com. TheEoNProject at yahoo.com. And eventually we will have a website up.
We're working on that now.
And, being that this is a podcast and there's some production involved here, and obviously, unfortunately for us, this is not our full-time jobs.
It'd be great if it was.
We have careers and families and things of that sort. So we're going to strive to get some production done on these shows, get them up so you guys can listen to them. And like we said, in the meantime, if you have any suggestions. We always take suggestions from people. One thing that we did when we were doing the live show on AM radio a few years back was we actually took listener suggestions live on the air.
Yeah.
People would call in, they'd give us, or they would email us and give us a topic off the cuff, and we'd talk about it.
Yeah, because we're experts of nothing. But we know a lot of stuff about a lot of different things.
And obviously that'd be difficult here because
no, but you can also tweet us.
Tweet.
You can find us on Twitter. It's at TheEoNProject.
Tweety.
We're the only TheEoNProject on Twitter.
I'm surprised. We're looking at names of the show.
Yep.
It's a catchy name, so you figure that somebody would have had it already.
No, we're blazing a trail for others to follow.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. I think that's it for this week.
Yep.
We'll be coming back at you again with another episode here shortly, and with topics that we don't even know yet.
To stimulate the mind.
Stimulate the mind.
Hopefully,
and
just stimulating
senses.
the mind.
Why not?
We don't want to stimulate anything else.
No, just your brain and your senses as well.
But please contact us via the email or Twitter.
Absolutely. So just remember, the truth exists. Believe it.